towards B, the ability to rotate over towards A and still find value, and then the duelist choice where no Waylay, despite this being the map she was kind of showcased on, it's still Jet, still the instantaneous value with the Tailwind, the ability for the Cloudburst to separate sight lines, and of course the Blade Storm for so much economic value in those rounds where the team can mostly buy, but a couple people maybe credit shorts, send those credits to a teammate, get them a weapon, and then you can just rock the Blade Storm to try to strip one for the opposing hands.
One thing I'm going to be looking at is in terms of like the actual macro of this, seeing what's going on here. Because when you look at the composition, sure, you could talk about the player to player kind of differentials when we look at what's going on here for the roster. But on the bigger scale, you got to be looking at the composition just changing in general. I mean, this is a sit we're talking about. This is what we've seen for literally years, and it feels like nothing has been touched or shifted in some regard, unless you're one of these teams going absolutely crazy with it. But when you look at JMU, they've made enough of a shift where it feels like almost somehow where they're saying, okay, we're not touching this too much. We haven't really gone, out of the woodworks, done anything too super off mid, I would say. But better yet, the fact that they're actually changing. So there could be the caveat of this to say maybe they have practiced this. Maybe they have been scrimming this before it went back into the pool to say what shifts could be made, what innovations can be made, and how can we beat the old composition we've seen for so darn long.
Yeah, we had the same conversation at the end of last semester for the SEO as a team that you really like to see, didn't bring the Jet for Ascent, where like their entire purpose was to highlight that Jet, shut them down, and then find success through the later stages in the round. And it worked for a couple of games in Ascent, but eventually started to reach its boiling point and couldn't really outdo the rest of the competition. J-Phone has a pop flash ready. That's how we'll have to be very concerned about this rush forward, but the double combo for Wadi and J-Phone secures easy picks to get this side up now. Two players as it's a mid-rush here towards Pizza. Ryrie and Murr, devastating two for Ryrie and Murr. A strike through for one more, and it is a climb to the top of the leaderboard here as the rotate will be made for JMU off here towards the A side. Get this plant down for free. Only a Sober to contest this, and there's not really any utility on the back of your mind in round one. But this brawl, this blitz that they were planning for, obviously didn't pan out the way they expected, and we saw one of the few semblances there, Dallas, of a pop flash from a KO actually being really impactful for a team push.
Yeah, and even when you look at the other side of the coin, when you look at the breach coming through, I mean, that's going to be something, that's all the guy can do, really, is pop flash. Looking to go ahead, get aggressive, find these angles, take whatever kind of fights you really can, and especially with this being round number one, Aftershock already being vested up there towards heaven, you're seeing what exactly Wadi can try to just manage here, and it's not going to be too much. I'm not going to freak out if this guy doesn't get too much and kind of really harbor down on him, but that goes in hand. There's a possibility to get the shots off and maybe find some heads, but he only found one there in the process. We do see JMU find themselves the first round, carrying things over, and maybe going to get themselves a good couple buys. But another big thing off the back of that is Murr able to go ahead and get at least two of those kills, because those kills were only spread between two players. It wasn't a team ace. It wasn't dispersed along the larger sum of its counterparts. It's just kind of these two feeling themselves, and that's something you want to see, especially going to the second round, because while that From the Shadows isn't going to exactly do everything you need it to, a Rolling Thunder in round number 3 or number 4 is going to be monumentous.
Yeah, the Omen getting all your kills is a lot of times frowned upon because you're like, where is the rest of the team to do that instead? But on attack, honestly, that would be the best side to see Ryrie try to get these frags early on, because you can use that From the Shadows with the spike to get a quick plant over to the opposing side, get information early on who was sitting static on site, what their agent split is going to look like. Is it a 3-2? Is it a 2-1-2? What kind of deal are we looking at here for Cumberland's defense positioning? And right now we are looking at a fairly heavy stack over here towards the B side. It is a gamble that they're going to try to work in, only having one player towards A. The KO can use that 0 point, continuously charge that back up to try to get anything to see if anyone's coming A main. They can sit in the puppy corner. You catch the players on walkway and courtyard, as well as the players coming through A main. There's a lot of value for a single player to sit there. And we mentioned a little bit about Pearl and how difficult and how wide that map can be. A lot of the first confrontations and rounds come down to individual heroes having to either get big kills, impact kills, or make safe fallback plans. And right now, your safe hero play had to be on A. The rest of this is going to come down to the blitz on B side, and that's where we're starting to see the utility be expunged. Clear out Cubby right below the inside of Market. Check in towards site. Nobody's sitting towards Hut. Everyone stacked towards box. It's an even 2 for 2. Chances maybe for Wadi, but it doesn't work their way, and FSO's only able to strike for one more. A lot of value. Yes, Dallas, you did drop 2 weapons, and Tarpy is very, very low, but Jofo needs to at least get one more to make it a great round still for Cumberland, and they just weren't incapable of doing so as Cart swings through to the B main lobby.
Yeah, only expected to some degree. I mean, considering the kind of guns that you're up against with the Bulldogs and the Guardians and Hands, and even more so, I do like these options for the picks. The two Guardians going ahead, pushing up to the middle of the map. That's going to be a matchup that you're looking at relatively early, just seeing if you can maybe find that pick, get that lineup, see if you're feeling hot, and then if you can manage to get that kill, not only is that a free gun, but that's the entirety of the middle of the map open and your playground to mess around with at that point to really start feeling things out here. Because if you go off that last round, Cumberland didn't really give much there. I mean, obviously, you're looking at an eco situation for your team. You're looking at classic shorties. You're not really trying to go ahead and extend, look for anything crazy unless you know you're going to get that value out of it. And that's why I prefer to see that stack and kind of give up that space towards the middle. But even then more so, there's the caveat to that. There's the other side of the field where, you know, sometimes you do want to go ahead and feel out and see what these defaults look like. As you mentioned, the 3-2, the 2-1-2, kind of see where you're really feeling at. And I mean, who knows? There's still time. There's still plenty of rounds left. And, well, especially if Cumberland go ahead and just wipe the field with this one, there's going to be a little bit longer game to go because we're going to go back and forth.
So I was going to try to re-engage early, but so much of JMU's initial push here into a lobby and out through the precipice of this two-way or technically one-way smoke from this position that Murr's having to deal with it against just didn't really pan out for them. And this is where we're going to see Cumberland try to take the fight to them instantly. They can sit back static, hold a little bit stronger, maybe bait out the audio cue for the ult orb as this was tapped just a moment ago. Looks like Dharma or Caruso will try to one step closer to see if anyone's holding close into the arch, and there is one, but it will not matter as J-Phone Shooter just shot every person that came their way, blew them apart, and Cumberland will take round 3. As expect for the 2-1 split, the standard mold of Valorant, but taking that flawlessly now means that they don't have to use really any credits bar to get some of the economy for abilities back online for round 4, and they don't have to burn out a much needed 2,900 credits extra or 1,600 credits for an SMG extra to try to get that 5th person involved or even 4th person involved. It really got bad for them in round 3.
Yeah, and one thing I'm noticing here early out of Cumberland is I'm loving the discipline from them. I mean, even then, you look at JMU, you look at what was trying to go there from Caruso, looking to tap that ult orb, maybe go ahead and say, hey, we're confident enough we can push this thing out. All right, Shooter, yeah, awkward. But looking to see what they're managing here. I mean, already they're not overextending. They're not saying, let's swing this out. Let's look for these players. They're saying, look, we're not moving out this side until we hear a spike go down. Well, you can go ahead and tap that ult orb. Take it, dude. Who's left? Cypher? Omen? Go ahead. What's that going to do for us? Not the biggest deal in the world, but when you look at everything else that's going on there, they're just holding their ground. They know they're on the defensive side of the field, so let's just play some darn defense. And they did a really good job of that initially, and you can tell right here, right now that even then, they like to throw those curveballs in there. You already see the Omen moving up, looking to get a little more aggressive because they want to find these curveballs. They want to keep JMU on their toes saying, are they going to be up? Are they going to be out? Are they going to be on site? Are they going to be towards backside? Are they playing for retake? They're keeping this element of surprise alive in the game, but it's just not enough for FSAAU because Darby ends up just knowing about that one. A nice little exchange there, and when you know the rest of the players on site, here it is. J-Bone looking to clean things up. Can't find everything, but knows, once again, game of discipline. I know I'm outclassed here, so I'm gonna wait for the reinforcements to come around.
Yeah, great repositioning. Now stabilize the defensive structure to retake site. Try to unfurl first from rafters. Rotate 1 or 2 players here to make sure nobody's gonna swing from Garden, and there it is for Garden. Pays the price. Now Murr left alone. And for Murr, you like to think they have a couple of jokers around them, but you are quickly being encroached upon, and you are dealt with easily. Murr, the last to fall, and J-Phone got 3 in that round. Such well-positioned, well-disciplined defense on the side of Cumberland, and that will secure them this 2-2 split. And now JMU, after a round result like that, won't really have the full credits to buy out everything they'd like. They can make the hasty decision to go in early, go for a thrifty Dallas, or maybe try to just play for the macro economy of the ult orbs. They have the luxury to kind of wiggle into that spacing on offense, and B-side is arguably fairly easy to try to get substantial control of that ult orb as the wall is no longer wall bangable through.
Yeah, I mean, huge stance here for Cumberland to get things kicking off. I mean, JMU obviously went the first 2 out. I mean, that's just going to be a bit of a definitive on the second round after the first one being the pistol. But I mean, Cumberland, looking at them on this defense so far, they are just so darn clean with their executions and the way they play this thing out. Obviously, I was going to talk about this guy, but he does all the speaking through his gun barrel. Already, J-Phone, he is the one you can attest an entire last round to. The 3K holding down the entirety of A. It leaves the question, why is JMU going back? This man can hold it down by his lonesome and show you that, well, there's not much to really take if this guy is still alive. The round prior, well, their eco, they had an advantage. They had better guns, and you were expecting the win to come out from them. but not in a flawless fashion. You follow it up, you double it down, and sure, it's still an anti-eco here for Cumberland, but I mean, this is JMU we're talking about. This is a team that should be able to at least clean up 2, 3 on a consistent basis on these kinds of situations, but it just looks like they're struggling to get their footing here.
When you see the 0 point go out, why does the whole team still decide to commit there? Your Jet can't dash out any further. They'd already tried to updraft up to high ground to play in. They had to jump off like the average duelist. What are we, Rays? No! We don't have to have that. Wait a couple seconds longer. Wait for these smokes. Draw things out. One of the big things, the big differences between a lot of amateur play for Valorant and the upper echelons of collegiate is that the rounds last a whole lot longer. We're seeing the last few seconds tick before spike goes down. We're seeing players survive until the last few moments. A lot more saves, a lot more conscious efforts to poke one side, then go to another, then bait out this direction. I'm not seeing that right now from JMU. They're poking and prodding, but the only thing that's getting poked in the process is them with 762. Cumberland are piecing them together. And JMU needs to start to collect themselves, calm down, and realize that mistakes can be made in the early stages. They have to be willing to take a fallback plan and not just commit straight forward to A out of the get-go and not be willing to change their mind or make the rotates to opposing sites. And maybe go ahead and check on over here towards doors, because Jape is watching this with a great sight line to keep this contention of archway connecting in towards tree. And there's the head lopped off for one, maybe hoping for more, but
yeah,
Darby will eventually do enough work. But the damage has been done, and it will be a cleanup crew for Cumberland as they just need to pace themselves in accordance as Darby's the last one there.
Push it out. Why not?
Looking to get a stun, a pop flash for J-Phone. How many pop flashes are we going to see this J-Phone go for? They are seemingly aware that I was dogging on KO the last 3 weeks in their, I guess, lack of professionalism for pop flashes. They're trying to prove that they're still super valid in the current scene.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing really what's going on here. I mean, Cumberland's able to just go ahead and win out these fights, and they understand this map. I mean, it's one of those teams where we see good teams go to die. You've mentioned that on many instances talking about this particular place and previously. And this is one of those things where we're expecting to see a little more equilibrium here. We're expecting JMU to kind of keep up, keep that 3-3, bounce back and forth. But with Cumberland winning the past 4 in a row, I mean, they've now accumulated all the ultimates, but what's it going to amount to? And that's why they're going ahead and opting in for this timeout right here, right now. While sure, they may not have really all the guns in the economy to kind of back it up, it's going to be enough with that Blaze Storm in hand, the Armageddon to flush players off site. There's enough pieces of a puzzle here to create a pretty picture. But issue is, we haven't sorted these pieces out yet. We don't really have the frame. We haven't started on that and found those corners to know really what we're assembling here. And I think that's why they need to take this time, understand, and start to really feel out Cumberland and say, is there any trends whatsoever? This is where the coach has to come in and say, look, this is what I've noticed. You guys are sitting there just trying to gun it down, and I understand that things aren't working out, but you have stuff to play with. And even then, honestly, you ask me, the biggest trend I've seen is A side ain't working. So let's go ahead and look at B a little bit more. Let's look at that market entry. Let's look at push it to the middle of the map. But the problem with that last option I just mentioned there is, well, Shooter's gotten plenty of money in the process at this point and was looking at an operator before selling it and saying, maybe I'm kind of overstepping my boundaries here. Let's go to the Outlaw again. We should still be doing some good damage and finding the shots necessary like you see in front of you. But beyond that, I mean, I wouldn't blame this guy if he wanted to take the upgrade here in a little bit after 2 more rounds.
Well, the Blade Storm attempt to equalize Hamiko for JMU, maybe giving them a chance for this round, has now fallen through. And with Darby also being taken off the board, that's a whole lot of utility in the back of Teo's pocket that will unfortunately be forced to stay there till the next round. A lot of this distance game that JMU were trying to take advantage of has ultimately failed, as J-Phone was a pixel above the head placement. This is where we see in collegiate the top teams, they just know where to place their crosshair, and that was exceptionally close to get another free shot with just relying off the reflexes to do so. JP goes ahead and swings through once again those door side, the panel doors. He gets themselves one more, and Wadi just sprays through, and it's flawless for Cumberland.
Oh.
Yeah, with a pistol as well.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to downgrade myself to a free gun and still win that. Oh, hurts. It's just
free
so
gun,
unfortunate.
by the way.
Yeah, just salt in the wound at this point. Why don't you? Let's just go ahead and get the salt
well,
lick
though,
out.
for JMU. Well, we can't give it too much, but they did dedicate the Blade Storm. It was shut down first. There's obviously things JMU needs to do better, but we've now seen them fail on A, seen them fail to push up through mid, and we've seen them really avidly avoid the B side bar the first 2 rounds. I would really like to see them have more impact towards B here.
I mean, I would too. They just have to go ahead and understand what this KJ setup is like, because I mean, that's the big thing. You have your Sentinel set up over here, and then, well, you got J-Phone over on A side. So it's like somehow they have coverage for both of these sites. They have an understanding, and they have just what feels like a cone's whole plan for when it comes around to hold this thing out. And well, there you go. We found our third player. It's not Lotus, but it darn sure feels like it with the 3 lanes on the map. And well, Shooter's covering the middle as he get caster cursed, but definitely did the job before, well, you went ahead and got buried 6 feet under. So in a 4v2 scenario, I mean, he's already done his job. He's already gone ahead and killed off plenty of players. If anything, he killed J-Phone there. I'm queuing for that rotation faster than you can blink. But as it already stands so far, Cumberland now understand that these players are at the middle of the map. They're going to go ahead and be pushing up, waiting for that cue to say, hey, he's in mid. And a nice little swing results for 7-1 more. And here's FSAU already going ahead, rounding about, just pushing up that A main the entire time to get a wrap. It is this perfect situation where Cumberland, even though they're the Phoenixes, I mean, we're not having to see them rise from the ashes. They're more like sharks right now. They are surrounding these guys. They are swarming them, and they smell blood because JMU is just shedding it so consistently. And you got to slow this hemorrhage down. You got to learn how to bandage this thing up. And I think, honestly, playing a little bit slower, seeing if Cumberland, once again, when you actually get this momentum, really kick it into high gear, I mean, this may be a momentum kind of thing where you know that A main, Omen's pushing that thing out. That's one player at least to work with. And then you can say, we got 4 ultimates. Let's just kill J-Phone for once, please.
I like you mentioned shedding. I feel like for JMU's offense right now, they need to look at Ouroboros. They need to be the snake eating itself, right? They need to complete that circuit. When one player moves forward, the backline also needs to start making its own steps. It needs to fill the gap. It needs to control zone of control for these players. And right now, we're seeing too many of these first bloods go without any impact afterwards, whether that be damage or even something as seemingly simple as some like a refrag in the process. But none of it has come true. This is another round where you get a first frag here off of a rifle. Was not Shooter this time, but Shooter immediately takes in for a refrag off of themselves, their own kill, to conclude for a second for their side to get not just a 1 but now 2 player advantage. And JMU are back at the same exact fill foot where we don't know what to do. We don't have the correct puzzle pieces to continue our straights forward, and we have to start to try to think more than once about our options, and that's going to be dealing with this A-side contestation where they've been working so consistently with this courtyard presence. It's failed every time. Now they've gotten a foot into it, but FSAU is waiting for their chance.
I swear.
No one in hell. Check your corners, because no one does it, and it's 2 sent to the afterlife. FSAU wants one more as Darby gets rid of them. Pushed from the backside by JP, though, and it's 7 for Cumberland.
It's one of those scenarios. I've been warned by our boss not to say the word, so I just had to sit there and do something else. You have a breach, you have flashes, and we are just swinging, I'll say it more appropriately this time, vanilla onto sight. It's excruciating, man.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. You have brought Dallas to the point of having to self-censor. I don't think I've ever heard the man self-censor in the years I've known him. This is what you brought to him, JMU. This is... they have the right idea. The execution is flawed. The transitions are not working. They're non-functioning. They moved one player all the way through into B lobby here, or B main. They'd like to leave them there as a foothold to maybe took 1 or 2 players into mid to work down alley. But they haven't gotten any safety net. They're stuck within a smoke. They're trapped. Court has to go for the tailwind uptrap combo, and they didn't use the Teo. They didn't salvo Cubby. So JP gets a free 3, and they send out one more for 4th. Cumberland, they have a family, but by goodness, it's seemingly their own faults at this point. JMU can't forget to get down to the basics.
I really wish I could just see more so rewind and kind of see where those salves are headed to, because when we've seen Darby on a round-to-round basis, even kind of push it up towards market, we've seen Darby for the past like 3 executions on A side or B side, better yet, pushing it into that cubby where JP was sitting this exact round. That's a matter of just timing, unfortunate circumstances, just completely disintegrating your team, because They say, well, there hasn't been somebody there for the past 9 rounds. Surely it's different this time, or at least the same, and I can invest that somewhere else towards market. Looking at shooter, holding down that operator, flushing that guy out, or at least back to some degree. And, well, that's the one time where JP says he's already holding market and mid. Now I get to hold this cubby. You've already given them such a stacked arsenal that now their plans become even bigger. They've become tenfold of what they were prior. And it's that whole thing where the timeout, as I mentioned, that framework you needed earlier, at this point, you should at least have half the picture together. But as I mentioned earlier, it still feels like we're struggling to find the corners.
I talk a lot about complacency, and I say a lot in R6, you have to pick an objective and stick to it, right? If you do the same thing twice, it breeds a level of complacency that doesn't belong in a strategic shooter. Val is also a strategic shooter. You don't need the random drones. You don't need the random, decoys and beepers and all this other crap in the game, right? You don't need all that. All you need is your agents, the utility that they bring to the table, and the easiest way to not breed complacency is by staying mobile, not sitting in the same spot. Utility can change in position. Utility can function in entirely new ways if you just move it 3 inches to the left or decide to place it on a wall instead of on this box. So many different changes, and Cumberland are not just doing it with utility, but they're also doing it in positions. JP shocking the world last round, shocking the JMU roster because they read into a play. It's like, well, they've been doing this consistently. What's the worst that'll happen? I'll take a step forward and avoid the salvo, right? There's a smoke that keeps me mostly covered. They just counterplay super well, and they play in an unexpected fashion, and that puts JMU on the back burner. Here's a Hunter's Fury. They know they're rushing here through A lobby. It's a straight funnel, straight easy kills. Everyone on the side of JMU has been removed in the single position bar. We had one off towards Courtyard, and now you just have Guru stuck here, left to wonder, what could I possibly do in a 1v4? And I think your best option here is just to hope to maybe shut down a player on Rafters, see if anyone's down in Hell, check then thereafter for Winery, because you know they were there previously. But how often are you willing to peek into this in such a dangerous fashion, especially when you'd have to get 5 kills to even get the ultimate online, to even find value for it for the next round? And Wadi jumps off of Rafters with the Odin in hand and instantly shuts Karus down through doors. This was just a belligerent rush through for the utility for Cumberland.
Don't waste your firepower.
Yeah, just even then a beautiful shift in terms of the read. I mean, we've seen Cumberland on these comms. I mean, just going ahead, giving the audibles, letting players know when in mid, when to extend, when you're probably going to be clear to kind of make a push out and get a free kill off the back of that. I mean, when you look at what these teams have been doing, more specifically, I mean, obviously, I'm going to sing Cumberland's praises here. What they've been doing is just beautiful. And even then, going ahead, queuing that silver rotation relatively early on, knowing that more than likely there's not anybody over towards his B side. J-Phone has been holding that almost flawlessly so far. And even better yet, knowing the Sova's there, it's one of those Hunter's Fury that, as you mentioned earlier, is just beautiful. It's a straight line. Better yet, I mean, more accurately put, it is fish in a barrel, just lined up there. That thing extends over the entirety of that lane towards A main. And if they're pushing that thing out and they haven't shown any kind of emphasis towards garden or towards middle of the map, it's free pickings every single day of the week. And I mean, Cumberland understands that. That was JMU's last real full buy round. You can see it here, Bulldogs, Guardians, half armors galore. And with all that lining up perfectly for them, they're saying, my one button is about to go ahead and at least rip 6,000 credits out of your pockets. So, I mean, it's just insane to see that Cumberland are having not only the circumstances line up, but when they do, they read them. It's not missed opportunities. They are just nailing these things time after time after time. And JMU, I mean, I can't really help but feel bad for them, knowing that A, this is their map pick, and B, knowing that, I mean, they have to really just lock things in here. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at a 10-2. And I mean, we have seen comebacks before, but we've seen them happen in the second half after, say, the pistol round, and the next one, we've seen that kind of score discrepancy. Not going into the second half with that, because if Cumberland find themselves a pistol round, well, what do you know? We're already looking at match point.
Last round of the first half, and Cumberland has been on a flawless 9 in a row, and JMU have not really found an answer for it on offense. And I don't want to call out that this is looking very eerily similar to how the old school top Valorant teams in collegiate looked like, where defense struggled, but if it looks the same way when we reverse it around and Cumberland starts struggling on offense, maybe the return to Ascent has kind of changed things up in a way that's not to be expected. Or maybe it's just the default agent selection here for Cumberland that has not really flowed in the way that JMU expected against, as they've changed up their composition by a fairly large, but not a super large margin across the board. But lacking that KO will definitely make the defense a little bit more uncomfortable for them, as it is a 3-on-4, and it very well should have been a lot easier with a free frag there for Darpy, but J-Phone somehow gets away with having those shots eaten and not even going through the corner there of that archway into tree. Pop flash for J-Phone as they use the smoke here to try to get a little bit of a semblance of safety as Murr wants to push it and is able to get two in the process of doing so. The lockdown is employed, nowhere near to have any contention for Murr. The spike will go down and they'll have two angles at which they'll have to look into. One here for Wadi as it's a spray through the wall directly to where Murr was. By the way, my goodness, they have a rolling thunder that they could use. They know a player is here. They'll likely have to opt to do so to try to isolate a free frag. This goes in, does not connect to the KJ in the corner though, and Jape just barely out of the range of it. Has no problem concluding the frag with the Phantom in their hand. It's 10-2 for Cumberland. And this JMU roster who's kind of riding off a high still of their LAN victory against GMU at their LAN, right, is unfortunately now facing a 10-round tripling in the favor of a defending side on the map of Ascent.
Yeah, what an absolute masterclass of a half there. I mean, everything past that pistol round and the following, as you can tell, it was a Cumberland highlight over and over again. And I mean, more specifically, obviously, J-Phone. I mean, just going ahead, just really kicking things off there. I mean, the kill discrepancy between J and FSAU isn't even that big, honestly. I mean, still, they're all relatively close. They're in that same kill bracket. But when you look at J-Phone, he's the one who established that early. The only reason he didn't get more kills is because he found so many so consistently so early that JMU just didn't want to push him anymore. They didn't want to fight that guy. And that's when they say, let's try B. And there's Jape. They would say, hey, what's up? I'm here too. I mean, now this is my time to shine. FSAU just kind of scrounging around, taking advantage of the fact that JMU is constantly moving slowly into these sites because they're terrified of what they're up against. So a bit of a different approach in this one, not really meeting the shots right up front because they don't feel confident enough to hit those. So instead, we're going to see if JMU can find this little lap around. But who knows how that's going to go, because now, if you look at the situation, they're right back on the attacking side, and we saw how that went.
Here, heart's already low, but it will not matter. Darby's getting a ghost shot off to the two. The shooter gets a frenzy for more. Classic free gun, by the way, for FSAU. Right clicks to Murr, and Wadi just sprays through a layered smoke to deal with another, as it's just Darby now remaining, trying to retake their own objective. And it's, by all accounts, a shortcoming, as Cumberland will start off on the right foot and a very wrong foot if you're JMU, winning the attacking pistol round and possibly setting up a surge in return. Because guess what? You're at the state where we'll ask a lot, Dallas. He goes, hey, the score line is like 9-3 at halftime. If you lose the pistol, do you choose to buy or do you try to play for a perfect half? You have to buy here. There really is no question. You need to meet and match. And the only thing they can really do here is stingers and half armor and hope that they get a little bit lucky and can rotate fast enough to deal with whatever Cumberland brings to the table.
Man, it's just, I don't know what I can really do for these guys. It's that thing where, I mean, we saw the lap around. I like the idea, but it just has to be faster. I mean, because as soon as I saw these guys back in B main, I'm like, oh, we're back in Nom. It's a problem. Like, it's that situation where you're put right back in the attacking side and absolutely nothing's changed. You haven't held down these sides. You haven't been playing that defense, and you're put right back in the situation where we just saw 10 rounds back to back just strung together. It didn't work out, and here we go already. Cumberland looking to make the investment, trying to get right in there, knowing that even then, still, you got the force out. Great job, buddy, but the money isn't there. This is a half where Cumberland isn't only winning money off the round, but they're getting extra interest just for the plan as well to allow them to fund these weapons and just really go in. If there's anybody, well, we talked about J-Phone kicking it off. Looks like Shooter wants to end it.
Oh, goodness gracious. How much more can you ask for here from a team of Cumberland at this caliber against a team like JMU, who was also at this caliber? This is not the scoreline I expected. I was asked before the broadcast by Blake over for this for our Rocket League side, one of our operations managers, where he asked me, what do you think the scoreline is going to be? I was like, well, I do think Cumberland will likely end up taking it, but I do think that there's going to be, depending on the map, something like a 4 to 5 round margin. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy.
13 to 9 minimum.
But it was going to be close, right? That was going to be the idea, and it was going to be up to JMU to change the expectations that are laid in front of them. And while Card got a little bit of momentum there with two good frags, Shooter and Wadi instantly tag it back as Shooter sprays through a smoke and deals with Karuz. It's, man, it's just, this is a different beast for Cumberland, and it's JMU unfortunately not really finding an answer for the feral nature that Cumberland brought in with full impact. This 13-2 final tally scoreline for the first time we see Ascent back in for the season of SEL on broadcast. that is the map where good teams go to die, and the best teams seemingly shut out and said, we will never die, and we'll only lose 2 single rounds the entire showcase.
Hey, good news for me, baby, because if you're a good team and you want to win out of sit, hey, don't pick that Joker, right? Let's keep that one off the book. But I mean, realistically, I mean, seeing what's happening here, I mean, that was just so, I mean, you have mentioned that previously where good teams go to die. But this isn't a good team we're talking about at JMU. This is a great team. This is a team that's just been consistently showing up over the entirety of the season, especially in the tier 1 pools that we've had. So I was expecting, as you mentioned, that kind of 13-9 margin at most in terms of a discrepancy. But I mean, seeing that, it's just crazy to know that even then, I mean, round after round after round, if it was even then scattered about where it like, say close rounds where there's margins. I mean, you and I have had plenty of instances where we're saying the scoreline doesn't represent what happened in the game. You know, 1v1s, 1v2s all the time. But you just saw strings of kills after strings of kills constantly. Where, I mean, if this was on VLR and you look at that grid of performance where you see, you know, 2K, 3K, 4K, 5K, these guys would be playing Rummy Cup. It's like there would be so many colors and so many numbers thrown in front of you because it was so consistent how they were just keeping those things in line. It was one player stepping up saying, just honestly, the confidence was there. You see the rotation. Jake's saying, oh, they're coming to me. And Jake Flynn's saying, they're not a problem. Literally just spray, and you'll get yourself at least probably a 3K on the round. I mean, they were just feeling it. And you could see that. It was almost tangible, the way their confidence was just welling up inside of this map. And honestly, as I said, for that to be JMU's selection, this next one's got to be terrifying to look at.
Yeah, I think there's this semblance of game. Dusty, when you used to care a lot about R6 back in the heyday, right, you would note that every single player would be with 5 bullets left in the entirety of their back pocket as well as the magazine currently in their hand. It was pre-Fire City, right? It was map comprehension that led to understanding where players would be at certain times and how that would kind of change as they progress in depending on the operators that they had. And for Valorant, we never really saw that in the same way, right? We're now starting to see it. It was always utility consumption simulator for a long time, which is where R6 has stepped into as well. It's now turned into a new bout of map comprehension elevates the rest of the gameplay for utility consumption, where I know where they'll be, I know where I can guess they'll be, I have utility that helps me to guess where I'll know they'll be, and then I use that destructive utility like the guided salvos for Tejo to clear these angles to make the job more advantageous to me, so it's an easy clearing. For JMU, despite bringing in the Tejo, without a clear understanding of where players were, how they were going to play, and maybe a lack of desire to pre-fire through smokes and have perfect crosshair placement for these pre-fires, it turns into more of a, they're shooting at me, I can't see anything, I don't understand a single thing that's happening right now, what is going on, and it looks like you're watching a Marvel Rivals broadcast, right? And it's 5 support ultimates coming down at the same time. This shouldn't turn into that. It's map comprehension that's performing so well for Cumberland, and even for a map that hasn't been in the pool for a long time, to still see them added at that level, ridiculously impressive. But we're gonna go ahead and take a very short break, so maybe napping for this one, but when we get back, the players will be ready. We'll go ahead and jump on over to our second map to see if JMU can hold out or if Cumberland will finish this in a 2-0 fashion. 13-2 is obviously no scoreline to scoff at, especially for Cumberland here on the opposition's map pick, where you're looking at saying, well, that felt pretty damn good, right? We feel pretty comfortable where we are right now. But you're heading over to a different map, but a lot like you mentioned coming into this series, Dallas, when we talked about the pick and bans, it's not that different. These maps feel very similar. When Ascent was gone, we said this is the new Ascent. This feels the most in terms of playstyle to what this map that left, the Ascent, had provided and had lost to them. Now you're playing essentially the same map back to back, and for JMU, I don't know how that's going to pan out for them. They've got to hope that the agent selection changes because they just had no answer for the utility in the positional like performance that Cumberland were bringing to the table.
And even then, to be more so, that just comes down to more information. That was the biggest thing I feel like was really lacking there. I mean, obviously, you look at the Tejo, you only got the drone there to work with. I mean, you don't get the recon dart like you do with the Sova. You look at the KO knife available on Cumberland's side, that will make sense. That's tried and true. But I mean, the big thing to me was really the breach. The breach is what I kind of feel like really slipped through the cracks mainly because, I mean, we just didn't have enough opportunities. There wasn't enough aggression and utilization to really say, okay, we're not fault lining market just in case shooter's sitting there with an operator. We're not flashing onto sites and really just kind of pushing the agenda and getting ourselves to that spike placement. It's just over and over and over again. I feel like out of all the things, I mean, it's not a player problem because we saw Mercan hit his shots, but it's last map is a bad example because kind of nobody was. But besides that, it comes down to more so just in terms of the utility. I don't think information in terms of just alone when we're looking at, okay, say you need more initiators and you need more kind of forward intel. It was more backward intel that they were missing. I mean, FSAU was constantly flaking these guys out, and you're saying, we selected a cipher, didn't we? Like, am I just gaslighting myself, or was I knocked out cold? Like, what's going on here? And even more so, you look at everything else available to you. You just got to make sure to kind of that KJ, even though Cypher's great, I mean, it's just kind of the making sure and being able to, on the attacking side, pack up your setup and then just take it somewhere else. Move along with it, place it back down once more so you're covering your own rear. And even then still, when it feels like the front isn't covered, you can't feel too bad for your Cypher because it's like, we shouldn't even be this far back in this stage in the game. But now we're on a new map. Now we got new compositions to work with once more, so maybe we can find a way to fix a couple of these problems.
Now we are seeing a new meta kind of step into the flow for Lotus, and a lot of that's coming at the back pocket hands here for Vice. Vice is extremely powerful for this map.
Love this character.
Extremely powerful. And we've seen Jamie bring it to the table before, so we know that they can perform with this composition. The Fade also brings a whole lot of value next to that. Viper's a very solid choice. Nothing is wrong whatsoever. This will likely be a mirror matchup for the opposing side as well, because the Vice is just, if you had to pick as a Sentinel choice between a KJ, which was very strong, having the Nano Swarm, you know, having a turret up above for intel over towards Mount Unsea, controlling that archway, they widened the ever-loving everything out of that archway, and it's no longer as tiny of a funnel, and it's so much easier to kind of work around those nano swarms, and it's not as impactful for frag potential or even as good damage potential as it used to be. So Vice steps in a whole lot more into the comfort zone for the map of Lotus. It will be a mirror composition. As you kind of expect, the big difference makers of the previous map was going to come down to that KO for the 0 point, and their honestly, half of it wasn't even just the agent, it was just how solid J-Phone was. Them as a performing player. That Vice on C, if they perform even 50% of the quality they did in Ascent for the lockdowns they did over on the A site, you can kiss any of the chances of you successfully taking that C site out the window here if you're JMU. But good news, you can get quite a bit of a lead if you start off here strong on the defensive half. It's your turn to show what you can do on defense and not have to worry about maybe demoralizing yourself after a poor offensive start. Like, it kind of felt like Ascent turned into there towards the end.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of surprised that we are seeing the mirror composition. I mean, sure, this composition makes sense on both ends of the field, but to know that both teams are just duplicating it is a little bit odd, because when you look at this map, I mean, we've seen a lot of kind of challengers and pros. We've seen the Tejo kind of replace that Viper, kind of incentivize a little more aggression, give yourself a little more flushability there. They got to place those salvos down, kind of air out the field a little bit, especially cutting off early round situations. Like you see right here, this gauntlet that just gets funneled towards A site. Your Tejo can get more aggressive with that than any other kind of character, just because of the pure damage that's instantaneous off the back to collide with your rays and the stun available to make sure they get hit by about that paint shell. But knowing that even then both teams are opting instead for this Viper, I mean, we're going to see those lightsaber battles a lot on that mini map, and I'm curious to see really how we're going to get more of an effect out of some of these and others, and it really just comes down primarily to the kills in round number 1, which Cumberland seemed to be doing a fairly good job.
Yeah, Cumberland also, I mentioned as well, we talked about map cohesion and map knowledge. They were just a lot better at taking shots through pre-fires. They were a lot better of knowing where the corner would be, even through a smoke, and trying to take shots at it and contest. Cruz is now tucked in the corner, able to get one, and it's a good frag back in return as it goes 1-for-1 for another set of duels. And leaves only Mur now alone in a desperate 1v3. Pissed around, you don't want to get too far behind, but defensively now having to retake the ace site where you don't know exactly where it's going to go down, and having a perfect cover from someone on stairs, and now Shooter rushing towards you in default ult pip. It'll be Cumberland taking this first round, and a lot of the early frags did come through that lightsaber, through the toxic screen, taking shots at where they expected players to be and where the tracers were coming from. Cumberland are all but willing, Dallas, to just waste ammo, because at the end of the day, for them at this level, it's not wasting. They feel like it's always going to hit. They feel like it's always going to make an impact, and when it does, it's not, hey, clip that. It's, yeah, as I expected.
Yeah, it's one of those maps, I mean, where you got more than enough VOD review to go ahead and research kind of the default placements of these players. I mean, this is, as we mentioned, the Ascent of what the map pool was for the longest time when Ascent was out. I mean, this was the replacement. So this is where a lot of teams defaulted to, and this is where a lot of teams were already kind of going ahead and setting up and knowing where they were going to be a little bit more comfortable at. So JMU going ahead looking to kind of shift something over, maybe play the game a little bit differently. It's just not going to work out for him because, I mean, well, Shooter with the 3K off that first round, getting the money off the back of that. I don't believe I remember if the spike went down or not, but even more so, regardless, that extra money being available just across the board and that string of kills being put together, especially on your duelist, it's a very worthwhile investment. And, well, you can just easily push up that A site with it. So Cumberland obviously expecting to have the second round to work with here. J-Phone trying to watch the flank, understandably so, when the rest of your team is having a very easy time on site. You're not really too concerned with what's behind.
I mean, there's just so much total utter faith in J-Phone here for Cumberland. And why not? I mean, this is a player that has proven their performance, not just here in the SCL, but has proven themselves across CVAL and across any competition they play into, because it's the team at a caliber that's good enough to compete past the collegiate scene, right? And for J-Phone, it feels like no matter where they place them, it's not going to just be a wasted loss. It's not going to inevitably mean to a net negative. They let them kind of prowl around towards Mountain. They leave the wall up for Vice, connecting there towards B long, so they have the ability to kind of cut off. That was something we mentioned JMU didn't really have a solid performance with, despite having that Cypher, right? They weren't able to shut down the FSA out trying to prowl in and move around the map. They almost treated it like it was Haven, which for us, Des, we feel like a lot of casters, we see a lot of map movement, we see a lot of mobility, we see not a lot of passivity, which is the right idea for a lot of maps, but Ascent was never the map that was truly mobile for the defenders, and Cumberland employed a very mobile strategy and kind of shocked the JMU roster a whole lot, as this defense is trying to meet a lot of utility early. But look how much space Cumberland took in the first 10 seconds. They got past Trunk, they got past Cubby, and they're already at the gates and precipice just behind Stack, just short of being able to contest this stairwell, as there goes the paranoia. Ryrie being forced to fall back. A wall bang for FSAU to deal with one more, and though J-Bone tries to prowl in through B and have some sort of assistance, maybe all the way up to the top of stairs, it won't matter, because the second kill comes in for Cumberland off the back of a snake bite, a simple piece of utility, flushing them out and dealing damage in the process to finish them off. 3 on 3, and they can only do simple jump peeks here because everyone's having to come from a very one-dimensional angle in to retake the site. They can't trust stairwell. They don't want to take a long firearm, and in the process of trying to take this very direct retake, they know where the last two players are forced to drop. It's into drop where they get dropped by JP. Easily for Cumberland to go 3 in a row and break that mold.
Yeah, just somebody now standing here for Cumberland once again. I mean, just establishing that dominance early, not even giving those first 2 rounds over to JMU. I mean, when it's their map pick, you're expecting them to know the map a little bit better. You're expecting them to kind of, on that pistol round, have the aggression, have the default, have the understanding of saying, well, especially with the momentum off that last map, so as we can carry it on into the first here, that's going to be more than enough to just really dish out this game and just possibly end things swiftly. I mean, Shooter's already going ahead and feeling really good. Nobody's in a negative kind of stance in terms of the KD ratio. I mean, they are all just playing like nobody's business right now. So, I mean, you're looking to already see that. I mean, they are playing these A pushes over and over and over again. This is the first instance we've seen where Murr's going to have to hold out, and the guy has an outstanding opener showing that, well, even if it's just a sheriff in hand, don't push my sight, boy.
How much more do you got to go through? Who's able to get a share shot out? That's another one for JMU. Cumberland do have a player disadvantage, but able to usurp a lot of control over there for the C site. Flank is very much so on the docket. Burrowing into the horizon as you see the Fade and Viper prowl around through attacker spawn. And I think for Cumberland, they don't want to hit C-side. They've given a lot of time and a lot of space for JMU to try to constrict into this in this attacking range. So they want to play a little bit further back and they want to rotate towards B, but Cart's got the cuts. Down goes FSAU. J-Phone wants to contest this. They know they only have a Sheriff, so they go for the double swing alongside the Hunt, and they can now use the entire highway that is Defender Spawn Dallas to rotate full over to A, where there's no way for JMU to have been there because the two players here, Viper and Fade, were just working their way through B. A perfect transition, and you can leave the Vice. This may be a chance to find one more on top if it's not a perfectly timed double swing from someone Defender Spawn as well as up into heaven through B, where Darby wants to try to contest through, checks the corner, and down they go as J-Phone can just wait for them to contest as the Arc Rose fails to get the proper flash. One more swing for J-Phone, and the damage has been done, but they're out of ammo. It has to switch to the Classic and get Wadi from sight to rotate over to help. They've left the spike. They have total trust that they can hold on to this from upper side rope. Karuz is trapped down below. A Hawk reveals them. It's utility after utility. It's control taken over once again. And Karuz, though, yes, can get J-Phone. They know where you are. Just peeking can get you off of that spike. And Cumberland go for 4 in a row.
It is insane to see what Cumberland is pulling off in this map. I mean, just understandably so after the masterclass we saw during Ascent. I was expecting a little more confidence, a little more just comfort here. But I mean, man, not to this kind of degree, just understanding the reads. I mean, some teams, crazy enough, a lot of teams you would see the rotate already take over towards that B side of the map. You know, the door was made, already opened up, so the shift towards that B site was made. And that's where you're saying we could honestly lap back around to C. I mean, that leaves one of two options. Lap back through C, cut out the Vice towards backside, and just win that match outright. But they're saying, we got a Vice. We have to set things up. We have to cut ahead of our opponents and have a bit of a setup here. I mean, that's where you're saying, who else better than J-Phone to say, I can trust you in my life, buddy. You sit back, just call out the time. They're already going to be sprinting and hauling and stressing this A site. And in the process, they know that the rotation wasn't made. So that's where you see the assistants come through saying, we can do this together. Wadi's got you. And just boom, clearing that thing out. JMU, off a timeout like this, I genuinely don't know what you can figure out. It's more so your just coach kind of telling you that you are not having to pivot your game plan completely because, this isn't something that you find a solution for, that you figure out. It's more to just saying, we have to find a way to get better placements and kind of get these fights to look a little more winnable off rip based off utility, because the shots alone, the ideologies, and just the mental of what Cumberland is providing to the table right now is just completely different.
Now you got Cumberland looking to start up a new strategy in round 5, something we've not seen from them. 4 players stacked up for a B main push. Now full control over lobby. They've also put a player off towards tree and trunk. Put them on the backside there towards pillar. They're clear out cubby, which means there can be no transition help from A to rotate over to B to try to shut that down. The boost pack does get Shooter into space, but a great shutdown from Darby for the 1-for-1, and Ryrie just sprang through the smoke. Something I mentioned was heavily lacking from JMU on both sides, offense and defense. The willingness to go for pre-fires and really not, feeling rewarded from the processes of doing exactly that, as there will be a From the Shadows expunged, used off towards tree. Should free up a possibility here for an A site plan as JP will not get the shots they wanted in towards defender spawn. Spike will go down. Non-standard default. This is actually on cubby hold default, as they would likely want to stay in the A hall. They're going to the back of site instead. They'll wrap closer towards defender spawn. Maybe try to catch them off guard. The Viper can at least buy time with the Toxic Cloud, and with a Snake Bite, maybe a lineup from defender spawn. And that Arc Rose, not being able to find any impact afterwards, will force JP instead to go over towards drop as they'll move the Omen once again down through stairwell. Mur wants to wait for the poison bubble to dissipate. Swings close side ramp, tries to pre-fire. JP gets the better end of it, but now FSAU can take this space and catch them off guard. Then the smoke card is low. Stick it to him, take the shot, slide up.
Oh my God!
Down goes Kartkaruz and Merle. What a hell of a round here for FSAU.
It's just typical. What we would expect out of Cumberland, and especially FSAU. What this guy has done so far. It's perfect. You understand either J-Phone
or JP, one of those two. Just get one of the dynamic J's to go, and they're going to hold that thing out. They're going to deny time for FSAU to say, I did this all last map. Surely I can do it once more in a clutch scenario. Let him hold out. I'm getting the wrap, and I'm just shocked that JMU wasn't thinking, where the hell is this guy? They completely forgot about him.
That may be one of the craziest moments I've witnessed in collegiate Valorant. Definitely so for the SEL this semester. Darby trapped over here towards Cubby, dealt with by FSAO. One more chance for them to try to contest against Ryrie, but Ryrie somehow gets the upper hand on Wadi and will try to take a couple steps back and force the Cumberland side to maybe question where they want to go into. But they've left their forward player now into Cubby, their Omen. While the idea typically is to put them there and then take an option maybe towards Door and Link, they could go for a B split push and have that player then take that Link side and apply pressure from a tertiary angle. They don't like the fact the Viper's pit is down, which means they don't want to hit that B side. And unfortunately, your Viper stepped out of that for a bit too long there, and it dissipates. So now it's no longer there on B site. The Vice is close watching. That's J-Phone, who's not willing to take a fight towards B because they knew they didn't have to worry about checking that corner because JMU had been poor about that at Ascent, and they were unlikely to check it there. You're taking the risk there to get a player rotating through defender spawn, and now it pans out as you can stall with utility as the Vice is so damn good at doing. You're trapped if you're JMU. One player has to take the big wrap through B Heaven, all the way through defender spawn, and J-Phone Arc Rose self-flashes for an initiation as a Sentinel, and you've now created a 4-on-1 where Cumberland was looking in dire straits last round and still pulls off a miracle. They don't need a miracle for round 6.
Well, trying to get something there. Going to be Caruso looking to just kind of scavenge something together in that round. I thought he was honestly just picking up the gun and just ditching. I mean, I'd say I would give you no. Yeah, I mean, that'd be reasonable. I mean, honestly, I'd be like, you know, fair enough. Like, your team didn't even get in onto you for that. It's like, what are you, us as 5 men can't shut these guys down. I mean, what are you supposed to do as 1? I mean, unfortunate, right? But I mean, looking at what Cumberland's done so far, I mean, JMU, it's just really, really, really bad scenarios over and over and over again. It's such an uphill battle for them just to kind of even figure out, not only to get to a point where they're on a level playing field where they can kind of really start finding themselves a lead, but better yet, just looking for anything to make themselves relevant in this matchup so far. I mean, obviously, you're not even on the board yet. Every single player is negative, so they're just not really hitting their shots. And I mean, we are just seeing momentum carry on from this last map where they are just going insane to kick things off. So it's just really good looks for him. Caruso maybe able to find something. Murr now being on the A side. I do like this adjustment, going ahead and have an extra player allocated while we know Cumberland like to go ahead and primarily hit. And then here we go, the Steel Garden going ahead, locking out these weapons, saying that if there is any time where we can kill Cumberland, maybe this is it. But JP can still find the exchange for at least one. FSAU's on site with the shorty in hand, looking to kind of get some shots off. Can't squeak out that kill there, but guess what? The rest of the team is still here to work with. J-Phone being alive, that's a problem. Wadi being there as a backup, another player I was usually concerned about. Hasn't had very many highlights, but still has been a menace nonetheless. And with these two being alive, it's really J-Phone that I'm saying that this guy's dead. The round is still very much doable until finally gets shut down for JMU to get there first here.
I feel like J-Phone's this instigator for the Cumberland side when they're playing the Vice right now. As essentially you're expected to be super powerful in these post-plant scenarios, and a lot of the times as a Vice, you can be there for setups and for also watching flank. You have a lot of, you're a player with many hats, right? A lot of many responsibilities and roles, but specifically, sometimes you have to let shooters shoot, you have to let players play, and J-Phone's personality is very much so present when they're playing on the Vice. They're poking the most ridiculous hornet's nests, right? They're sitting in the most obtuse angles. They're tucked in the most ridiculous spaces. And in a round like that where it's just a hectic mess, both the Nightfalls came through. You had the Steel Garden come out, ults for ults, utility for utility. Site was a total disaster. JMU just needed to survive. They just needed the full stall, and they got through it, lined up the final 2, and succeeded in getting their first round here for this map into the docket. Scoreline is still 6-1, but maybe this is where JMU start to find a little bit more confidence, because keep in mind, they did not find any throughout the remainder of that map on Ascent. They need a confidence booster, and this is a team that is good and has not been able to prove that in this series.
Right, just really looking for anything, quite frankly. And even then, I do like this assistance here, going ahead, locking down that C site, understanding after that last round, the Cumberland are saying
JMU's finally caught on. They want to go ahead and allocate towards this A site. They know the Vice is going to be much more appropriate here. C's just a little bit more denial and hitting your shots. And while things can look a little bit better, it makes things look relatively feasible. But here we go. Nice little gunfight going ahead, finding some initiation to the middle of the map. You couldn't find the shots there on the players looking away from you. And that's where JMU just understand that, ooh, we may have gave a bit too much away there. And having a double player allocation to me is insane. I mean, one there's really all you need, but you just gave up 2 players off the round to start. And even then, knowing the investment of the utility was going to be there off the back of that initial engage, then, well, what do you know? The second player doesn't even get a chance to shoot back or really fight for their own. So Viper's Spit goes down, Spike goes down, everything's allocated towards the C. And who else more than J-Phone to say, hey, Ryrie, I know you're trying to retake, but can we just not play the game for a little bit? That'll be fun, right?
Instigator. They are literally taking the most obtuse angles. They're applying for so much map control. They are just a walking threat. And for a lot of players, you do that role in your duelist. You do that role as an initiator. You play a whole lot more smart. And as a Vice, they're doing everything themselves. Initiation, signaling, and fragging. As JP does go down, that will remove the Viper's Pit. It's going to require a lot more, though, from Caruso on site. Murr's been kept back and is dealt with by J-Phone. But the player can just stick this, says FSAU has a perfect sightline as they transition down below. And the very early start that didn't manage to give JMU the best footing, almost still managed to come through with good contest against Cumberland there, as the scoreline is now 7-1. But that was a very close round, and we're seeing some presence out of JMU's rosters and their ability to retake. That's a Viper's Pit that's extremely powerful that a lot of teams will just try to avoid, and they got the Viper immediately. They got their win condition forward, and everything afterwards just came down to gunfights where, you know, Cumberland doing Cumberland things. They're winning out by just playing all over the place and never sitting truly still.
I feel like when it comes around to ranked games, J-Phone is the worst teammate but the best player on the team.
Yeah, by far.
Like, this guy's just by himself, and everybody's saying, what is he doing? Like, what? We're not playing the same game. He's like, you're right, I'm better. Like, it's that whole thing where, I mean, I'm going to go play by myself.
Spider-Man insta-lock.
Yeah, it's like you will literally hear he plays Kaona Sin. He's like, just let me hold A by myself. And they're like, who does this guy think he is? Him? I mean, what else do you want from me? And then on Sentinel is saying, you just go play the game. Put me in a 1v5. I'll still win it. What's the matter? Like, just let me play my game. If he plays Vice, he probably just insta-mutes his entire team. And it's just like, all right, I can do this. It's fine. If anything, it makes it easier because, I mean, I got less yappers. It's just insane to see what's been going on here so far in Cumberland. I mean, they are just so blessed to have a player like this. But already, even then, I mean, everybody else is still doing their job. I mean, Shooter, like the guy is pushing up. I mean, yeah, everyone is here, and they are willing to show what they are made of. I mean, Shooter obviously opening things up instantaneously, being a huge catalyst and cornerstone to those first 3 to kind of really just diminish that economy immediately on JMU and put them on the back burner for this entire game. I mean, you got to look at that clutch round. Even then, FSAU able to kind of go ahead and be that second agent of chaos whenever J-Phone's not kind of the main instigator there. I mean, everybody's just doing whatever they can, and every single aspect of it, it just works together perfectly to create this picture-perfect kind of image in front of you. So, I mean, as we see that the B site's trying to be held down, it sure as heck ain't going to be retaken considering the kind of guns that JMU is dealing with. And Cumberland found themselves in 8th, not in a row. They did have that disruption early on, but I mean, even then, there's still a chance of them having a better score lineup than what we saw during map number 1, possibly being 11-1. But we got to see them shut this one down because even on full buy rounds, they're never full buy rounds. It's just JMU saying, can we squeeze anything out of this? And they spend every last penny they can realistically.
That final moment there, I think, was kind of the moment that screams out to me what really is happening with JMU for a lot of this game. Murr's in a spot with J-Phone, and they can't make the decision in the moment to push through the smoke with the shorty or to try to get the Vandal back out and play for the smoke to dissipate and deal with J-Phone within it. They swapped twice. They just didn't know what to do. They were too hesitant. And right now in this kind of game, and it feels like a hero shooter right now, right? We keep making the joke about rivals, but this is what's turning into for a lot of the time for it. In a game that is so hectic, so busy, so much going on all at once, and that's the way Cumberland likes to play it, you cannot sit back. You cannot sit static. You have to be constantly improving. You have to be making those decisions in that split moment. And JMU are not, and it's leading to Cumberland finding a lot of instant value. FSAU, though, trapped in a spot against Darby and Ryrie, does get one. Ryrie will refrag it, so still evens things out to a 3-on-3, but JMU still have control over the majority of their sites, but Cumberland are looking to make a rotate, and it will likely be here towards A, as the toxic screen is in place, and having that Viper still up means that you'll have the ability to cut the sight lines, get that ability to switch door, maybe take over towards tree, but do they know that the Raze here is tucked inside of Cubby, just behind box. Card has not played the perfect game so far, but a showstopper here with a little bit of an audio cue would be a great way to solidify a standing. And neither side is trusting to go for full fire, and Card eventually gets spotted and dealt with as Cumberland go 2 for 1 in a trade as Ryrie takes a piece of the pie. But now it's only up to Mur, and JMU's Mur had trouble last round. And this is where you have to get real big for your britches, folks. And I think Mur has the potential, but they're not really rocking with the best of weapons to do so. And they don't have the best utility to do so either, since there's complete and utter vacancy for sightlines towards stairs. So that's where you place your arc rows.
Yeah, it's one of those things here. I mean, even then, J-Phone finally going ahead and recollecting with the rest of the team or whatever's left of it, looking to go ahead and try to see if he can find this clutch. And even then, that was a scary situation. At least enough understanding of these two players to say, I'm going to crouch if I'm standing behind this guy so we don't get lined up. But, I mean, knowing that they could have gone for that B plant, they had that space, so they understand that this is not an ideal scenario for Cumberland here. You have the Viper wall over towards the A site. You have a bit more of an actual setup. Your Viper is one of the last few remaining players. J-Phone is on B site, and last thing you want is that guy going ahead and pushing outright gunfights when Shooter's still alive, because that's supposed to be Shooter's responsibility. That you want to be kind of alleviating and shifting that attention elsewhere so J-Phone can do the things he needs to do. Cumberland understands what's going on in the map. They make these reads, and they are so, as I mentioned, the discipline I was talking about during map number 1, they just really nail it here. I mean, that kind of round alone is enough to show you what these players are capable of and what they can do. So Shooter, understandably so, has the showstopper in hand, and understanding there's a lot of chaos going out here. So let's just blow it all up and see what happens. And finally, as the dust settles, you see a 4v2 situation. We're able to find one off the back of it, while everybody else is still pushing out this A site, but not JP. Looking for a bit of a roundabout, knowing the last player's on site. As I mentioned earlier, sharks in the water surround this guy and take a big bite, but Mur's not going to go down so easy. You find one more, understands the other two are here. And I mean, Cumberland, this would be sometimes where they like to go ahead and shift, maybe go somewhere else, play a different site. But understandably, Mur may not even give them the time of day. Says, I'm too scared to take this. I can either roundabout, go back towards stairs, wait for that spike to go down, or I could just completely give this round up. But I highly doubt that's going to be a possibility, because JFO now getting the spike down. Mur looking for this rotation. Only 9 bullets in hand.
One enemy
Reload.
He's one.
Gonna be there! And for a 4K to clean things up, JMU managed to get themselves a second. But it has to, once again, be off a clutch play. Has to be this guy getting a 4K to clean out this round. You can't have that every day of the week.
And I said Mur needed a whole lot. They were
Last
complacent
round
last
in the
round.
bag.
They failed to make a decision fast enough. They weren't decisive enough, and they changed it up. You could see them trapped inside of Hut on A site, didn't know where to go, wasn't sure what to do, made the conscious decision up through ropes, wrap through stairs, and find a tertiary angle. That one decision and the full commitment to it, despite the audio cue and the utility we're hearing being sent, led to this. And with only 2 bullets left for the final frag to J-Phone there, you made the decision. You said, I have to swing this or I will forfeit any potential silence in them, as they're just going to hide off towards tree, and I'll lose my chance to find this kill, and it's going to turn into a long, drawn-out battle that I'm just not confident in taking. Mur changes within a single round. And look at the way that the result changes. JMU now still quite far behind. Last round of this first half, and they have all the ultimates in the back pockets. We're expecting to see them be used. They'll send one very far up with Ryrie and your Viper, all the way into Cubby over towards Tree on the A site. This is where Nightfall comes in, and we're starting to see the ultimates cascade back as it's ult for ult, Nightfall for Nightfall, and now the Garden comes through, hoping to make sure no one defensively can be there for JMU, but that's why you have your own. You can send back the other way. Is just a few moments as they'll wait for the full audio cue and the full team to transition into space. The spike is down, and now you can send out your own Garden, but Darby needs to do that in the right time, as here it goes. The team needs to be there. Commitment now from the flank as Cart and Ryrie combo for a frag apiece, and there's the frag from Mur. 3-piece special on the docket as FSAU tucks with the classic, but can't go further. Darby may fall, but you still got plenty more teammates where that's from, as Cart takes the head straight up JP's shoulders, and Shooter, one chance, lines up 2, but can only get the first, as Caruso rips them apart with 7-6-2 from their side.
Well, we have beat the scoreline of Ascent, and that's all you can really ask for. Every single small win, add them up, count them, and just kind of go ahead and find any shred of light you can in this matchup and say, well, next half, Car's going to be on the attacking side. This guy's going to wake up. We're going to see how Raze do Raze things and maybe draw this thing out a little bit. But You just got to make sure this pistol round isn't won out by Cumberland, but to go ahead and get things rolling, I mean, outstanding efforts here. A bit too much of an investment of Cumberland off that get-go with the Steel Garden backing up that Fatal, because, I mean, you already have something there flushing out players, and going ahead and doing it almost instantaneously as a retort, it's just huge there by JMU. Understand that Steel Garden was now invested and didn't hit any of us, and because theirs was a guess, ours is a guarantee. So just well played by them to understand and once again finally know that Cumberland were probably, that's one of those things where that confidence is a bit too much. The ego gets ahead of them because they're saying we're just going to nail this thing, slam down this last round and just run right through it. And Jamie, you're saying you have to give us our respect. We're not going to go down just lying.
Phone gets tagged there by the Prowler. Shots out from Wadi. This is the first frag of our second half, and it's a fade-on-fade battle. It looks like Cumberland's defense gets the better end of it. Likely we'll see JMU rotate, but Spike was in. Why, oh why does your Fade have the spike in that moment with no one in front of them stepping into such a close-knit space like it is on B site? They'll all have to get 3 players that were close to Mound to transition in here.
Spike's on B. Where are you going, bud?
Range. Cart takes the chance now with the Ghost to deal with their doppelganger. J-Phone moves in the corner and right-clicks classic free gun, by the way,
my
for 2.
God.
And the spike moves about 3 inches to its left, and that goes no further. As J-Phone locks this down even further, and your one play you've left close to Mound, who you were hoping to kind of wrap and repeat what J-Phone was doing in that first half, was not able to do so successfully, and now needs to step back through door and join Cart for the very one-dimensional, straightforward rush through here into the arches of B main. And you know where J-Phone is, and you can just spray those pre-fires again. Map composition and understanding, break it down, take some shots early. There's just no information, and J-Phone gets both in the same right-click shots to get their 4th and tally up a garden again. They're halfway to it, Dallas.
Yeah, just, I mean, nailing down one more. It just came out of that first pick. Spike gets trapped out of anything else, and that's just saying, oh, we had a good thing going here, guys. I mean, it was something. It was a shred of light, but I mean, just once again gets snuffed out, and it's not even more so by Cumberland just playing better. That was just more so a small little mistake by JMU and a bit of a misread, but outstanding buys to go here into the second round with the 2 Guardians in hand lining up on this A side. I mean, I'm surprised JMU's even going for this, and even better yet, Wadi with these initial shots. It's going to be pretty easy to go ahead and let them know this may not be the lineup you want, bud. Well, you probably got Stingers, Spectres, Sheriffs, maybe. Okay, can it line up against a Guardian inside of this massive lane? Well, when you throw a bunch of smokes at it, you're closing the gap enough where you could say probably.
Huge use of the tether. Try to keep Rari in space, just barely on the outside edges of it, though, and it will not manage to grapple them. The tendrils for your Fade aren't finding as much value in the early stages of this round just yet, but you still have the ability to get the post plan in, as JMU have all 5 inside of tree. I don't know what the idea has to be from this point onwards, because you need to start moving a player to the backside.
Yeah,
you do
I think
have
they were
one
thinking the same
outside, but
thing.
you gotta have more out there to help Ryrie. They are literally just alone to die. They can't fall back to door to help you. The audio cue should have forced them to make a choice, but that's when you would go out and door the exact same time.
Shooter's gonna shoot!
Fails. Shooter's gonna shoot with a Bulldog. It's a 4K, and they almost got the ace, but the classic luck can only bless J-Phone, it seems like. But it will still put Cumberland up to 11 and spell a, well, maybe an early demise here for JMU, as they will have to go ahead and buy a lot like we saw on Ascent, where they were too far gone after the result of the first half. They still feel like they have to commit, even losing the first 2. It didn't do enough. They'll still be able to go in for round 3. I don't know, Dallas. This feels like a lot of the times we saw JMU win those rounds in the first half, especially that last one, was when they had all 5 ults. The one before was a miracle.
Yeah.
The round 8 result came down to, or sorry, I apologize, round 7 result came down to lining them up and getting some really good trades, which was very lacking on Ascent and all the rounds prior to that. This is hard pressed for JMU, but honestly, this may be the best map ever to VOD review for them. They will evolve leaps and bounds after this.
Oh, and even then, already an initial first blood, just being sniped back. It's just one of these things where a player extends up towards A. They're trying to go for a default, but I mean, JMU just have not been one of these one-on-one engagements. It's just, you got to start learning your lesson eventually, and I don't know if it seems like they're really capable of doing that so far. I mean, we've been singing Cumberland's praises through this entire map. I mean, obviously, there's still plenty of time for JMU to kind of start give themselves some highlights, but it's more so just kind of redeeming your honor in some regard at this point, because seeing what's happening so far, I mean,
JMU, as I mentioned, I mean, I could talk about this in the post game, but I mean, it already kind of feels like we're getting there just because JMU has not been able to figure out. And unfortunately, from them, I literally have God vision. I can see through walls, and even then, I still can't really quite figure out what JMU can really do to get themselves into a winnable situation here. Obviously, winning out gunfights is going to be huge for you. So here's Ryrie kind of doing that, but now Shooter's back in the round, has a showstopper in hand. If you clean out that player there, doesn't.
Thorns are alive.
You got to be in those scenarios where you got to make it look good for you. Placement's everything, and FSAU every single time is on the flank here. Doesn't win it out in that circumstance, but I mean, has seen it so consistently on top of J-Phone. It's like these guys are playing, as I mentioned, like Shark, sure, but almost like two pieces of bread in a sandwich. No matter whether it's bad or good in the middle, you got to have the bread or it's not a sandwich. I mean, just plain and simple. And that's how these guys are acting. That's how this team is. They feel comfortable enough, isolated, to play anywhere in the map, and they understand their placements. They say, we got 2 wild cards, 3 shooters, 1 guy, which is JP, who's just good at buying time and annoying people on site, and it just creates this perfect opportunity to say, all right, I snap my fingers, horses are going, everybody get on site.
Ooh, FSAU uncharacteristically missing a lot of opportunities there, but the 2-for-1 special that comes through because you have J-Phone to swing afterwards and collect 1 more on top. You had an isolated fight with a long-range A player off towards stairs, and then the A main entrance and the approach there onto the A site. That's another free pickup for the side of Cumberland, and the last round result, that win in JMU's favor, is nowhere present for this 12th round win for Cumberland. And who's leading the precipice, who's leading the charge, but J-Phone to solidify their stance once again that they are some of the best, if not the best. They are just out of this world performing, and now they have once again the Garden online, and there, yes, there is one again in the pocket here of Murr, and there is a From the Shadows. I talked a little bit about it. That From the Shadows is a little less potent on offense for a lot of teams, and while it still can be really good, it is pretty reliant on you actually managing to stay alive. And we saw 2 rounds ago, Dallas, that Ryrie was the sacrificial lamb on that push through A. They've not been doing a great job of keeping Ryrie alive through these pushes, and despite that, they've gotten themselves 13 kills and stayed even.
Yeah, it's just one of those things here where for a final round, I mean, JMU, as I mentioned, is just kind of about reclaiming some valor, a bit of honor here. I mean, just looking to kind of keep things close, keep these rounds contested, just try something out. I mean, because it's such a big discrepancy. I'm not saying give up by any means necessary, but I mean, you got to start throwing some wild cards out there, and as you mentioned, ultimates as well. I mean, you get the Steel Garden, but it's the same thing as we mentioned during that last half where we saw Cumberland invested. And it was more so of a guess because you're on the attacking side. Well, guess what? JMU on the other side, it was more of a guarantor, but they still invested a bit early. So with Cumberland wiping everything out here, cleaning up houses down to a 1v5 scenario, Cruz can only do so much here, and it's just going to go ahead and be chopped up shop.
13-4, our final tally for map 2. Better than our first map, but Cumberland, they're a historic roster. I've been saying that quite a lot in the booth here, in our calls here prior to Dallas when we're talking producer and observing everything. This is not just a Cumberland that's really good this semester. This may be the best semester we've ever seen for them and the best performing Cumberland we've ever seen. This is they are just by all accounts the best you could ask for, and they're feeling it very confidently. They apparently, we talked to Fred, who's currently our producer right now because we had Shaka had to call out, said that their director straight up said that they not only feel confident that they're going to take Valorant and win the LAN, but their Rocket League team will also do that, and they want to go for the double 2 title. So sure, I'd love to see that. We were like, a part of us is like, first time it'll happen, so it's a story to be made. But at the same time, you've got teams that perform really good at LAN. JMU performs really good at LAN. They obviously just took a LAN, right? So that's going to be a big difference maker for them. How is that going to change in terms of mental? Is it going to change in attitude? And, you know, especially after a loss like this and how demoralized that can be. But the thing about the winner circle right now is everyone goes through the playoffs. They all get a bye, and it's really just giving them the ability to play and kind of progress. And also, does this say Infernos is cast up here? What? That's not my Twitter, Fred. What are you doing? INFERNOS1S on Twitter. Okay, what in the world? You could look me up. You follow. All right, I digress. That really irked me suddenly.
It's just Twitter, bro. Chill.
JMU can look at this game, and I kind of touched on it for a little bit there 2 rounds prior. This is the best rivalry that I asked for this entire series, right? To see, like you call it, the God view, right? The overhead of everything, to have that vision and see how Cumberland are building things up, the pips for them, the pings, where they're placing utility, how they're evolving each stage and progressing, and maybe where your shortcomings were. And there were quite a few, right? The scoreline doesn't look that way if it isn't full of shortcomings, but I think there's enough there, and you have such a talented selection of players around you in the program, as well as your coach and your managing staff and everything else in between. You have no problem securing the slight changes and variations needed to then next time you face this team, because you're likely to face them in playoffs unless you perform like this in playoffs, right? It'll either still be a Cumberland win, but it'll be 13-9, 13-10, or you very well may beat them, take a map off them, and do everything else in between, and you create this giant story for you heading into the LAN down in May, where you say, okay, you beat us twice, shame on you, we'll take you for the third, or beat us once, we beat you right back, this one goes for the ultimate victor, we'll face it down like a UFC style, who's going to get the ultimate crown at the end of the day for the 3-piece. No matter what, my goodness, JMU versus Cumberland, this has been a series, but Cumberland, they showed up and they proved they're the best team here.
And even then, this could have just been vindictive, I mean, obviously being beat once is at that point where it's like, clearly these guys didn't have much of a game plan. They were just shooting. They were just feeling better on the day. And at this point, in terms of an actual composition and the way that we see Cumberland play the game, just genuinely better. I mean, I just don't know who could really stop it unless you have a team that just kind of full fronts all 5 players and just kind of is able to scan out and understand these sites a little bit better and just flush these guys out, create some problems, and just able to win out first bloods consistently enough where that whole kind of sandwich method that we saw Cumberland so consistently nail down just completely falters apart if you get rid of one of those pieces of bread. But it's kind of I just don't know if JMU really was feeling that. I mean, while they could have looked for it every here and there, the compositions never really opened up for it. You look at, once again, you had the fade, as I said, mentioned, if you probably kind of lost the Viper, opted in for the Tejo, like most tier 2 or tier 1 teams, and kind of look for a little bit more aggression, a bit more flushing, give yourself that side a little more consistently and a little more guaranteed, I would say. There's something, but it's just at the moment today, this was not it. But JMU, obviously, not the biggest deal in the world, but unfortunately, when we hyped up these two teams, it could be a matter of caster cursing, or it could be a matter of the difference between number 2 and number 1 in this league. That food pyramid, the tip is larger than everything else combined.
I also mentioned a little bit that everyone makes it to playoffs, everyone gets a bye, but it does determine your seeding. Right. And we've got an interesting spot, an interesting thing to kind of think about is Cumberland did forfeit their first week. They weren't available to play for the winner's circle, so they didn't play.
I don't blame them. They don't have to play.
They don't have to play. They don't. But that puts them at 0-1. Now they'll have winner head-to-head here against JMU, and they did beat UGA Black in week 1. They beat them at a 2-1 score line across 3 maps. Now we're going to have to see who takes the victory in Georgia Black versus Texas State, and we're gonna have to see how that final game breaks down next week when we see Cumberland versus the side of UGA Black, and then the Texas State versus JMU game. And JMU's beaten Texas State before, and the interview I had with them, they talked about how it turned into they were tough, but they weren't super tough. They weren't too worried about them. They just wanted to look ahead to Cumberland. I think they need to look back now at Cumberland and, obviously improve and think about it, because UGA, they were a tough opponent. UGA Black is a very tough opponent. They're very good, and you managed to beat them, but I didn't see the team that was capable of beating them here today. And I think that's it just is what it is. It happens. But with that being said, we'll have a broadcast tomorrow, and maybe over on the B stream, it'll be the Niner Esports main team versus Charlotte Val. Their game is currently going on right now, so if you know the score, don't spoil anything. We're recording it, and we'll rebroadcast it tomorrow for you guys, and we'll have the UAH facing off against UGA Red game on Saturday as well. We're trying to get as much of this as possible, and then we'll try to get as much as playoffs in as possible for you guys. But with that being said, they finally fixed it. Thank you, Fred. We'll see you guys next week with more Valorant action. Stay tuned for more.